Well, a cornerstone artistic organization in the city of Winnipeg is celebrating a milestone birthday. Théâtre Cercle Molière will be marking a century of theater excellence this month with celebrations and, by doing what it does best, sharing innovative theater with audiences in St. Boniface and beyond. Their latest production, Frisky and Agile, or Frisky and Agile, will be taking the stage later today. But ahead of that, artistic director Geneviève Pelletier joins us in the Classic 107 studios. Hello.
Hi, Nolan.
Nice to see you.
You too.
It's such an exciting time
It
at
is.
TCM. What is it like to be celebrating this 100-year legacy? That's such a huge number.
It is a huge number. And sometimes I kind of have to pinch myself because I kind of go, what's going on? Because I'm not 100 and that's been the big joke.
Yeah,
a lot of people are. But just the idea of all the community coming together, not just the community though, because I think this celebration belongs to the whole territory. I think this is something that was, came in 1925. But as I like to state in everything that I say is that storytelling has been on this land for millennials millennials of years. So in that sense, Théâtre Cercle Molière is sort of like the colonial way of looking at how art became an important piece in Winnipeg, and at the same time, how it has evolved and serving its French community. Because there were some hardships in the French community, and I think the theater was definitely part of the reason why we still have the French language on this land. But since then, we've been super lucky and great because we've been able to expand what it means to be Francophone and what it means to be an audience member at the Théâtre Cercle Molière. And that means people who don't necessarily speak French or speak a little French, who are passionate about the language or the culture. And at the same time, people who are newcomers and people who are immersion folks that have been the 3 generations of immersion schools that have been happening in Manitoba. We've been very, very forthcoming with that. And then, of course, the what I'll call the most traditional sort of Francophone community that there is. So all of those things put together has expanded, let's say, what TCM's offer is about, and very excited about being able to be at the helm of this amazing company on its celebrating its 100th. And what's most amazing is that after 12 years, I'll be leaving the theater at the end of this season, and we will be announcing, hopefully, very shortly, the next artistic director. So that's super fun. Lots of excitement right now.
So much excitement in the air. There's so much to break down within all of that. And I want to go back to what you were talking about before about the role that Théâtre Cercle Molière has played within the French community amidst those hardships that you were talking about before. What role has the company played in its 100-year history to ensure the survival of French language and French culture here in the city of Winnipeg and on Treaty 1 territory?
Yeah, so, not a lot of people know this history, and a lot of even young Francophones don't even know this history, but people could not teach French till the 70s. That right was taken away from the Francophone community once Riel was hung in 85, and beyond that, all those things that became an implication of what happened within that. And then we basically, all our rights to teach. So what happened was that people were very passionate about language, wanted to keep the language alive. And in schools, they would hide their books. So French was taught sort of underground for a very, very long time. Wow. And then there were inspectors this is a big story. Inspectors would come into the classrooms, and then everybody would hide their books. And then they would be reading, either Shakespeare and an English book just to show that they were. But after that, when the inspector left, well, then they would take out their French books again. And then that's how the French language was perpetuated in the school systems. But, we were still allowed, let's say, to have church in French. So that was a big place where people congregated around that till the 70s, till, there was the Quiet Revolution that happened in Quebec and slowly progressed out here as well. But beyond that, the Théâtre Cercle Molière was one of the places where people could come together, live a purely French experience together and build community. And so, and back then it was all French repertoire, very classical. And the artistic director of the time was a woman. She was called Pauline Boutage. She was a fantastic visual artist and an amazing woman. I can't say more like how I have so much regard for this person. And she would have like these huge, like 40 people on stage, 50 people on stage. People would come. It was extremely rigorous. Yeah. And beyond that, she was also able to bring the theater to theater festivals across the country. So they would take trains, go perform in Ottawa, the Dominion Theater Festival. They would win prizes there. It was like the big pride of the community as well. So there was just so much momentum around that. And I think TCM, the Le Cercle Molière back then, had a lot to contribute basically to how the French community sees itself today and how historically it was a mile, like how can I say that? Just a very important place for French to evolve within that. Yeah.
Oh, so interesting. Within that legacy, you have now contributed almost 13 years of your creative life to this amazing organization. And as you mentioned, you'll be stepping down very, very shortly. How, as you look back on your tenure as artistic director, how do you feel looking back at the contributions that you have made to this rich cultural institution here in the city of Winnipeg?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Nolan. I really think, I mean, I've been thinking about this quite a bit now. I mean, I'm sort of preparing like the package for the next person, making sure that this person has, that has all the information that they need. I really think that for me, I walked into the theater. I had been in the theater. I had been an actor and a director since 1991. Like I've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And for me, it was through the lens of my kids to a certain extent. I was seeing how schools were changing. And I had been at university and seeing the international students come in. But it's when my kids went to school and I saw how vastly different the populations were than when I went to school, and I look at the schools now, the French schools, and, there's about 50% of West African new immigrants, new people coming in. And I was like, wow, what's the future of theater about, And I really questioned myself strongly about that because, I mean, I loved the audiences were amazing at Cercle Molière, but, like everywhere, there's a real, I think, a reflection to be had, a lot of questioning around where are we going as an art form, who is going to come to this art form in 10, 20, 30 years, and how do we, open that door for people to feel welcomed in this art form. And so I think that was my mandate. I really do feel that. It was trying to re-question who we are as a community. Like I stated earlier, what does it mean to be Francophone today? And what does it mean to be someone who's welcoming, not only to people who come from elsewhere, but even to people who are on this territory and who are maybe curious about what it means to be Francophone or what it means to do French art. So that's been, part of the whole process. And I think that's been kind of my big mandate.
Yeah, and a lot to reflect on as you sort of enter these final weeks of your tenure. What will you be taking away from your time as the leader of Théâtre Cercle Molière into your next projects, into your next sort of creative chapter?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and still something that's like working itself within me. I think the idea of being a Métis woman, an Indigenous woman in a non-Indigenous organization, being at the head of that, reflecting around what it means to be to give space to people who don't necessarily always have space. Let's talk about, if we talk about marginalized voices and marginalized stories, and I really do believe that theater has a great vocation for dialogue, for bringing people together. We can both see something, a piece of art, and we both see something completely different, and we can talk about it because we're talking about the thing that's outside of us, and we may have completely different value setting or completely different ways of seeing the world or completely different cultures, and we can still have and appreciate each other's opinion about the work that we've just seen. So that for me is something that I take away, and that's what I hope to be able to bring forth, and whatever else I will endeavor to go towards. I feel social cohesion right now is like at top of my list of things to sort of tackle, or not tackle, but to look at and to try and question. And we are in a country right now, in a territory that is vastly different than it was 10 years ago, and I think it's going to continue changing. And I just want to be part of that change, I think.
Yeah. So part of that change also comes from the programming that you are putting forward, adding voices that have not been traditionally a part of a theater space in this setting. And I think that it includes this upcoming show that starts later on today, Frisky and Agile, Frisky and Agile, without giving too much away, because obviously we want people to come and see it.
Yeah, for sure.
What is this play all about?
So Jocelyn Sioui is a Wendat artist. He comes from around Montreal. He comes from a long line of storytellers, a long line of political activists. His last show was called Mon Oncle Jules, and it was just a phenomenal ode to his uncle who worked or tried really hard to change systems and, came up with some resistance. And I met him, I guess, about 4 years ago. And when I bring people over, it's also because I really appreciate their processes, and I appreciate their philosophy, art philosophy, and the way that their ethics and the rigor that they bring into their work. And so with Jocelyn, he came and worked actually with Stéphanie Morin-Roberts, who's an artist that did 2 shows at our this season and a couple of years back. And we had a chance he was kind of like, I would love to come and perform at the Cercle Molière. And I kind of was like, okay, cool. It'd be great. But I don't know about this last show. He's like, I have a new show, and it's all about storytelling. And it's about a story that I created, that I built, and I've put on stage. And there's 2 musicians on stage. And there's also a sand artist. So an artist that's building it's like projections on sand, like retro.
Wow.
So as he's telling the story, and this is, and it's extremely funny and very physical, and he's an amazing storyteller. And so people will be transported in the story of Aounsik, and with all this beautiful visual and auditive accompaniment. And I think it's a beautiful piece, and I really think it's gonna click with audiences. So that's really cool.
So this story comes to us from the Wendat community, which has obviously a lot of roots in Quebec. What do you think we learn about Indigenous culture, reconciliation, from stories that come from places other than Treaty 1 territory? In other words, what do you think that Frisky and Agile can teach us about reconciliation in our context here in the city of Winnipeg?
Well, that's a great question. I really do believe that we have a tendency of like putting everything in sort of an Indigenous lens. Like as folks that are not necessarily Indigenous, we kind of go, the Indigenous peoples. And it's really cool to be able to, like last week I was at PTE. I don't know if you saw the piece there with Keith Barker, who comes from Thunder Bay, I think, around that area. And it just shows a variety of different styles of storytelling, a variety of stories, a variety of cultures. And, we talk about, we have a huge discussions around this notion of pan-indigeneity, and how do we separate that without kind of keeping that solidarity that we want to have within, as far as Indigenous peoples are concerned, and wanting to have the space to be able to tell or state who we are. So I think the Wendat are, they were frontline in the first meetups with the colonizers, the French colonizers and the English colonizers. They suffered greatly as far as how diseases and how that community was completely or almost completely lost. And the notion of resilience, the notion of rebuilding, the notion of reaching out and being able to share these stories. I think these are all things that we can take away from Frisky and Agile.
Yeah, so it's coming from this Quebec context as well. The Quebec conversation around reconciliation maybe has some other nuances that come with a different language, and as do all conversations that happen in other languages. They take on different sorts of meanings and capture different meanings in different ways. Do Francophone audiences understand reconciliation, maybe not differently, but through a different lens in the context of this kind of story with roots in a Quebecois region? Or does this message of reconciliation maybe resonate differently or provide a unique sort of a perspective as a result that we might not always get here in Treaty 1 territory?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Quebec territory, let's say, has it's a different since the culture is different, the way that they place themselves or they position themselves within that culture and within that land gives a different perspective to Indigenous peoples, and so I'm not too sure how that, but I can talk about how as a Métis woman and as the Métis people and especially the Francophone Métis people, I can talk about a resurgence, a renaissance, let's say, of that culture coming forth strongly. Like it's just every year feels there's more and more folks that are being, and artists as well, the André Naturel, the MJ Dandenos, the Daniel Roy's, the Amélie Tétrault, they just keep on coming forth, and I think just by celebrating stories from elsewhere, it gives us also strength to be able to also take on our own voices and bring forth our own stories. And seeing people from elsewhere, I think just grounds us even more into who we are, and the importance of saying and stating who we are.
So all of this, of course, being a huge part of TCM's legacy, especially as it continues to move forward into the next century of its existence. Something else we should mention, of course, is there's a big birthday party celebration happening on, I think it's the 25th. Am I correct? Oh, wonderful. What can people expect at TCM's 100th celebrations? Yeah.
Well, Sol Dernay, who's a visual artist, and I have been concocting a soirée, and it's going to feel like a big old birthday party with balloons everywhere, and a hot dog stand and celebrations, and we're trying to have a balance between artistic sort of manifestations and speeches, because we know that, it's nice to have a good balance in that way. Daniel Roy, Raver Rouge, will be the DJ that night. Sébastien Gaillard, who's head of the Gabriel Roy House, who's an amazing slammer, will be performing that night. We'll have one of the performers from Un Peu Partout, Mika, will be at the MC that night.
Oh, wonderful.
With Winnie, who's another up-and-coming artist. So, then they'll be presenting the season. The idea of the 100th is definitely to kind of go, okay, 100 years and beyond 100 years, there was storytelling. And then we have the Cercle Molière for 100 years. And then we have the future coming up. And so wanting to look at the 7 generations of that coming up. And so how do we as folks today have that responsibility around how we legacy and leave these institutions for the next generation. So that's been all part of the mix of what will be happening, because we're launching the season on the 25th, which means that it begins next season. So all of the plays next season will be part of the 100th century celebration. We are going to have a huge, bigger party at the Museum for Human Rights on October 4th.
Wonderful.
Where there'll be people will walk around the museums and like see artists, sort of engage with artists, have some food from Wow Catering, and have a big celebration with a VJ. There'll be sort of how can you say that, dimensionally? How do you say that when someone takes images and then just basically
like 3D?
Yeah, well, maybe not 3D, but just puts them like as fits them basically to the different spaces that there are. So we'll have it'll be a great party on October 4th, and then beyond that, the whole season will be we'll start.
Yeah,
it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be a beginning. So much excitement, but also so much responsibility within all of that. We've talked about the responsibility that TCM has taken on to help advance reconciliation in this community by putting marginalized voices more to the center stage, but also the responsibility that it has held since its inception to preserve the French culture and language. What do you think TCM's role in the community will look like over the next century? I'm giving you the crystal ball here.
Oh boy. I don't think that things have changed all that much. I really do think that the beyond like all the changes in the, because the world changes so quickly, and it will change probably quicker and quicker. Yeah. I really do think that it is a place where people come to meet, come to get together, dialogue, speak of or get a chance to talk about things that, we sometimes don't get a chance to talk about. Dialogue, openness, connections. Those are all the values that we stand very strongly behind. And I really do believe that Le Cercle Molière, it will always be that for this community and beyond. I mean, we haven't even talked about all the scope of the national and international scope that the Cercle Molière has done in the last while. And I think it just will continue to flourish. And I'm really, really excited to see what will come forth in the next few years.
So are we, Geneviève. Congratulations on 100 years of Théâtre Cercle Molière. Congratulations on your tenure as well as artistic director. We're so excited to see what comes next for this incredible Winnipeg organization.
Thank you, Nolan. I totally appreciate it.